As the time goes. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the first week of what I'm calling a Southern Chile box. I just couldn't come up with any better, clever name for it. So I'm calling it a Southern Chile box. I mean, it is essentially our third time doing a Chile box. It's a Chile box 3.0, but we're focusing on a very small part of Chile. I mean, it's a large mass. But in a grand spectrum of all wine regions in Chile, we're focusing on very southern kind of tip of viticulture area of Chile, and this is where I was on my recent Chile trip last month, and it was such a profound trip for me. So for those of you who don't know, I was just in Chile for 2 weeks last month. First week was for the annual cycling trip that I do, and the second week was to visit some wine producers and winemakers. So I ended up visiting, and a lot of that really started with I wanted to hunt down some Pinot Noir in this region, but it ended up being actually visiting these three producers from Biobío, Itata, which is Nuble, and Maule, which are the three conjoining regions in the southern kind of tip of Chile. And not only was I blown away from what I saw, but I was completely inspired by the kind of work and what these guys were doing down there. It was so it invigorated me, honestly. Made me kind of get re-engaged and re-energized, re-inspired about doing the kind of work that I've been doing in wine. And I just wanted to kind of put a box around that just because, it was fresh in my memory. I figured it'd be a cool thing to share that kind of not only just the wine, but the stories and kind of the context, everything outside of just the beverage. I mean, hopefully, if I do my job correctly this month, you'll be able to see that the wine in here is not just the beverage inside the bottle, but it tells a much deeper story. And each one of these bottles and each one of these people that are making these things, they're trying their best and they're doing some really brave work. It's just a hard work that they didn't have to do, but they are choosing to do so because these are the stories that we want to tell. These are the kind of their contribution they're trying to make to the Chilean viticultural history. And then I admire that so much that hopefully by end of all this, that you guys will have the same kind of level of appreciation for the juice inside the glass as I did leaving Chile. So anyway, so we may nothing is confirmed yet. They're schedules. It's also March because it's Southern Hemisphere Chile. March is their harvest time, so they're coming into the busiest time of their year. So I have asked them if they could join me for a guest speaker to be a guest speaker. So we may have one or two pop up this month, but nothing is confirmed as of right now. But we'll see. It all kind of depends on what their harvest schedule is like, and then what that is like coming up. But anyways, so yeah, we got 4 bottles. Out of those 4, 3 of the producers I visited. One of them I did not visit, but it is somebody that I wanted to visit, but just did not have time to get there. So 3 of them I visited. So we're featuring 4 bottles from that region, and we'll talk more about that once we get to the maps and kind of talking about where we are. Just a few announcements before we get into all of that. So Case Club goes live tomorrow. So all the wines that we tasted last month, which were the Val d'Alsa wines, the French/Italian wines that taste like French wines. So all that will go on Case Club. As well as for those of you who signed up for Bosch Box, the first recording will go out on this Friday. So the Bosch Box 2026 is starting this Friday, and then for 12 weeks going forward, you will get 1 recording every week, except for every 4th one, which will be a live Zoom tasting. So you will have 2 Zoom tastings. I mean, most of you guys have done this many times, but yeah. So every 4th week, if you join the monthly batch, you'll have 2 Zoom tastings in a week, Wednesdays and Fridays. So that's about it for all the announcement that I have for now. Any questions about any of that before we move about Bosch Box? And I know from I was just talking to Phil, it sounds like for those of you who get your wines delivered, there's been some mistakes and miscommunication that happened with Tony, and some of you may be missing your own wines. And I'll try to resolve all of that with Tony after the tasting tonight. but hopefully we'll get that all resolved very soon. So sorry about that. I apologize if you did not get the correct wines or did not get your wines at all yet. I know he's out there delivering. He got delayed quite a bit. So he doesn't just deliver for me. He's a courier. That's what he does for a living, and he delivers a lot of medication for disabled patients that cannot leave their homes and whatnot. So this is something that he does. But he's worked in wine delivery courier world for a long time. But that his initial daytime job got super delayed because of all the weather that happened in DC. So I hope you guys can have a little more flexibility and understanding with him than usual. So either way, I apologize. Anyways, moving on to the wine. So we are opening it all up this month with this guy. It's a cool little label. 2019 Roberto Henriquez Tierra de Pumas is what we're tasting today. This was the first, actually exactly this bottling. Tierra de Pumas was the first kind of Chilean wine that I tasted outside of the typical northern Chile wines, which are the Carmenere, Cabernet, all that Bordeaux blend that everybody associates with Chile. Was the first wine that I tasted outside of that, and that really got my curiosity hooked on, wow, there are different styles of wines coming from Chile. I've always thought of Chile as that's like kind of homogeneous, very big, bold, that kind of a California style wines. And there's plenty of that. That's the majority of it. But then I tasted this and I'm like, what is this? And then this was about, I don't know, I'm going to say probably like 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And then that's when I got hooked on this region. That's when I started kind of digging into what was happening here. And I've always thought, and I've only read about it, I've only seen it on videos and pictures, but it wasn't until I went down there this time and saw it myself. I've never been to Chile for wine. And this is the region that I decided to go visit. And it literally blew my mind. I mean, I may not be the same wine person ever again because of what I saw and then what I tasted down there. It is incredible what you see, and hopefully you will get to see why I feel so excited by what's happening here. And I truly believe that it is the most exciting place in the wine world right now, in the world. Right? Anyways, let's start with the map. Oh, okay. Hold on. Sorry. Why didn't I pull that? Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. Share. Chile. All right. Here's a map of Chile. You saw this last 2 times I did a Chile box, so some of this is a review. And now I'm not really going to go in much about what's happening up here in the north, right? I mean, we never did. It's not one of those boxes I never really featured, just because you don't need yet another person telling you to drink Carmenere and Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc from Chile. I mean, there are plenty of those out there. Any wine shop that carries Chile, when you go there, you're going to find that. So I'm trying to tell a different side of the Chilean history or a different type of Chilean wine story. And where we're talking about is here. So just to give you an idea, it's just southern hemisphere. So more south you go, colder it gets, right? Because down here is basically South Pole, Antarctica. So no more north you go, hotter it gets. In fact, the driest place in the world, at the Atacama Desert, is right up here. So, but going down, this is where I was, and this is where we're gonna focus our energy on this month. So this southern region. So by the way, my bike ride was I flew into Temuco, or I flew into Santiago, took a flight from Santiago to Temuco, went to this town called Pucón, and from there I basically rode down through Valdivia, Osorno, and all the way down to Puerto Varas, which is a town just north of Puerto Montt. So that's the route that I took here. There is some wine being grown here in the Austral region. This is technically the most southern part of southern wine producing viticulture region in Chile, but there's really not an industry there. There's like people who make some wines. It is up and coming area, and this is where you're gonna find some cool like Riesling. I actually had a really nice bottles of Riesling that's made here, which is super cool. Um, but when you're talking about the wine that we're going to be talking about this month, this is what we're talking about, South region. So I visited a producer in Biobío Valley, which is Roberto Henriquez, which we're facing today. And then I went up to Itata Valley and then visited Leo Iraso in Itata Valley. And then I went up to Maule Valley and then visited Jose Luis Bastia, Bastias up here. So I kind of got to experience moving up, going north from Biobío Valley up to Maule Valley. And this right here is the most historic. It is the oldest vines in the world. It's the world's largest plantings of the oldest ancient vines in the world is right here. The reason being, so this Concepcion, it was a huge port city. It still is a huge port city. And this is where a lot of Spaniards landed here back in 1500s. So this is where a lot of Spanish came to Chile, to the New World. And this is the kind of the port of entry for them. So the very first kind of a valley and land they saw was essentially Itata Valley, Biobío Valley, and then moving up towards Santiago, obviously Maule came up next. So this three region right here, Maule, Itata, Biobío, is where they planted their very first vines. Also right here, if you look in between, so I showed this picture last time as well. So when you look at the cross section of Chile, this is kind of what it looks like. So obviously Pacific Ocean on the left, and there's a little bit of a mountain that shoots up right in the middle, Cordillera. So, and then it drops back down as a valley. It's like a central valley of California. This is where a lot of agriculture happens. And then the Andes happens over here. And then this inner region right here in between, along the coastal region, the foothills of the coastal region right here, and then all the way down to the valley floor, especially in the region that I was telling you about right here in the three regions. This is they call it secano interior. Secano meaning dry, seco means dry in Spanish, interior means inside. So it's a dry inside here. And it is a dry farm viticultural region in central Chile, primarily located within the Maule. Nuble, which is, so this region, Itata Valley, the administrative name for this region is Nuble, but there's an Itata River that runs through here, so they also call it Itata Valley. But for wine terms, we call it Itata Valley. And then Maule. So this region, Secano Interior from here, is like I mentioned, this is the birthplace. This is where the largest planting of the oldest vines in the world exists. Why is that? So you may be asking. I mean, vines came from France, Spain, right? From Europe. So how could the oldest vines in the world exist right here? The reason being, we all heard of phylloxera, right? So back in late 1800s, 1880s, 1890s, there's root louse disease from North America because the Europeans came to North America, took some graftings and plants, brought it back to Europe. And along with that, they brought this root louse back to Europe. And this thing, turns out the American rootstock is resistant to this particular root bug, the louse. But however, the Vitis vinifera that was planted in Europe was very, very, very susceptible to this root louse disease called phylloxera. So phylloxera wiped out like 98% of Vitis vinifera all across Europe. It is recorded as one of the biggest, worst plague in wine history. And because of that, the oldest vines that you really see in Europe, even though we call it the old world, is essentially they have to restart in essentially 1900s. So all these vines you're going to find in Europe, of course, there are some pockets of the phylloxera never got to. But outside of that, that's a very rare, small rarity. Most of them are rarely ever 100, 120, rarely ever 150 years old, just because it just never got there. It just never I mean, it all got wiped out and they had to restart again, starting from basically like 1900s. So that is about the oldest vines you're ever going to find, right? 120 years old. But here, Spanish came in 1500s. They planted their first vines right in this region, Maue, Itata, and Biobío. And because, I mean, look at Chile. I mean, it's Pacific Ocean on one side, the tallest mountain range, and the longest as well in Latin America on the east, very long strip. It is a very hard place for things to go in and out of, right? For that reason, Phylloxera never made it to Chile. So all these vines that exist here essentially have, I mean, some of them have died out because natural age, but we don't exactly know when they were planted. But the oldest vines that we're talking about, and this is pretty common in this area, we're talking about like 200 to 250 years old. And not only that, they are non-grafted. They're ungrafted vines, which is the rarest shit in the world. I mean, as a winemaker, like when you go there, when I saw these vineyards, and by the way, these are abandoned everywhere because nobody really pays attention to this area for wine. Even within Chile, even Chileans don't understand the kind of the gem that they're sitting on, the gold that they're sitting on, because everybody's paying so much attention to the northern Chile and the wines, the Conchitoro, which is the biggest Chilean wine company and the third biggest wine company in the world is from Chile right here, just to give you an idea of how much wine that Chile produces and this particular producer produces. Everybody pays attention to Conchitoro and Miguel Torres, all these big, gigantic conglomerate, international conglomerate wine companies, but nobody pays attention to these old ancient vines that exist here. So because, up there, it's all commercial farming. So they're rows, neat rows. It's funny driving up from this region, and I drove from here to Santiago. So entering into Santiago, you start to see vineyards everywhere along the freeways, and they're in like perfect rows, like just beautiful, perfect rows. When you come down here, there's no just such thing as rows. They're all just kind of like planted everywhere. These gnarly tree-looking vineyards or vines planted just, scattered across the valleys everywhere. So it's essentially impossible to do machine farming. Because they're also 200 to 250 years old, the yield is super low. So it just doesn't make commercially, economically, it doesn't make sense for these big guys to come down here and do it. They are starting to do it just because, within the last 10 years or so, this area became really popular. People are starting to recognize it as a kind of like, wow, what a cool thing that is, 200, 250-year-old vines, ungrafted vines. So they're doing like projects. These big companies are coming down here doing like small little projects, but nothing is being taken at a big scale like it is on the north. So it's just been scattered, abandoned vineyards anywhere. And then you find these, you walk into these vineyards and you see these fucking gnarly ass trunk, like trees, like vines everywhere. And honestly, like I got emotional just looking at it. And all the winemakers knew is like, I look at people's faces when I bring them here first time, because every single person who works in wine, when they see this vineyard, like they're just shocked at what they're looking at. Because, I mean, it's as if, I don't know if you guys will understand this, but like as a wine person, it's like walking into and witnessing like a lost kingdom, like it's like a treasure field of, like if you're a chef, like coming across some ingredients that are so rare, so beautiful that nobody even pays attention to, but it exists and then just coming upon it. And then like, we just want to go touch it. Like, these winemakers are telling me stories about how some people have come down there, they go hug the vines and they start crying, and like European winemakers that go there and they're just like blown away and they just can't leave the vineyard just because they can't believe their eyes and what they're looking at. And it is unbelievable. And it's everywhere in this region just because of that reason, because they came here, no phylloxera, and nobody really knows when these vineyards were planted, but at least the oldest record goes back to at least 200 to 250 years. So they believe that it is at least 200 to 250 years old, but it could be older, but yeah, nobody really knows. They're not indigenous varieties, it is Vitis vinifera that was brought here by the Spaniards. So what we're talking about are patrimonial variety, meaning they brought it from the outside by the Spanish missionaries. So we're mostly talking about Pais, which we've talked about in the last Chile Box 2.0. We had a bottle of Pais in there, two bottles of Pais, Pipeño and the other one, and Leo's Volcanico, which is a Listan Prieto, which is found in Canary Islands, but it's also called Mission grape, Mission in California. It's also called Criolla in Argentina. So this is not the only place that the Spanish obviously brought to. Anywhere Spanish missionaries landed, they basically brought these things over. In fact, when the Spanish missions that came here, it was by law required that they had to first have to make a stop in Canary Island to kind of load up and re-up the supplies. And in that supply, they have to by law take certain number of vines with them. So they brought these vines with them. So one is, they're calling Pais here, but it's Listan Prieto in Canary Islands, Carignan, Cinso, Muscat Alexandria, Semillon, and Corinto, which is really interesting. Corinto, they call it Corinto here, which is Chasselas, which is the main white grape variety of Switzerland. So how did Chassela end up here? You know, that's a whole different section. So to talk about, we're essentially gonna, all the wines that we're featuring this month, except for the bottle of Pinot Noir that we have, they all have, we're basically dealing with all these kind of Spanish mission varieties that they brought over. Soil here is all characterized by granitic, clay-based, kind of volcanic soil, very dry summer. And then there's no irrigation here whatsoever. So unlike the north, where they actually take the runoff meltwater from the Andes and irrigate the shit out of the land, which also is because of factory farming. They have to irrigate it. It's part of the reason also they're dealing with a lot of disease pressure, as well as the wines are just not as pretty. But here is, there's no irrigation. So we're talking about complete dry farmed region. It's very dry here, even when I was there. I mean, all of Chile, from the south that I was, is very, very dry. Also, the soil here is all the volcanic soil. All the volcanoes exist. All the active volcanoes still exist in this part of Chile. So the soil here is very, very low in nutrient. So historically, very unsuitable for any kind of like intensive agriculture. So nothing really grew here. The big thing here is logging. So a lot of people log down here, and then you see these fields of mountainside that's been just de-logged, which is a big problem here. We'll talk more about that later, and as the month goes on. But basically, all the farming that have existed here have never really changed from that very traditional low input farming that the original native people called Mapuche people, which are from Itata Valley, this whole region, Bio and Itata Valley, how they have farmed is essentially hasn't changed at all. So the way they've been farming these grapes since Spanish missionaries arrived in 1500s, they've been basically farming it the exact same way before the Industrial Revolution, before the chemical intervention was introduced, and that's still the way they farm down here. So imagine that you got this gold, rare, incredible raw material, the 200 to 250-year-old ungrafted vines, which you cannot find anywhere in the world, and then on top of that, it's still farmed to this day, completely chemical-free, unirrigated, which is exactly what you want in a high-quality wine setting. And those things have existed for the last 200 to 250 years or 500 years. So just imagine the possibility, the potential for the wines that are coming out here. And that's why I say it is the most exciting place. It's only just starting to get rediscovered or discovered and starting to get out into the world. But this is a way they've been making wine down here for centuries. And then talking a little more about Bio Valley itself. Let's see. I actually have, I'll show you this thing. So this is actually where I was. So yeah, here you go. So these are all the different places that we stayed in on my bike trip. So from there, I came up to Concepcion, rented a car, and the first producer I went to go visit was Roberto, who is right here. So it's halfway between Concepcion and Los Angeles, and this is where Roberto is, right next to the town of Santa Juana. This is a huge kind of a place, very, very historical and meaningful to the Mapuche culture. So Mapuche are the indigenous people that are from this area, from Chile, but particularly this area. And then his winery is just off of Santa Juana, like about like 30 minutes, if it, no, not even that, like 15 minutes from Santa Juana. And this is where he is, just off of Bio Bio River. There's no sign. You have to go through a dirt road to get to his winery. His winery doesn't have a sign. His winery doesn't have a website. I mean, he's just one, he's doing everything just at this winery, but it's pretty amazing. And I'm going to show you what it was like. But before we get to that, oh, hold on. So let's talk about Roberto. No, is this it? Sorry. Here. All right. I warned this. You're all about to get a slideshow that nobody asked for, and I'm about to give it to you. So this is Roberto Henriquez. So he grew up amongst the vineyards even as a child. So his uncle used to grow grapes in this region. And then so he always knew that he wanted to work in wine and vineyard. So he actually studied agronomy and enology at the University of Concepcion, and then went to go work for some of those big wineries I was telling you about in northern Chile, and then decided to travel abroad to gain more experience. So he worked in Canada, South Africa, and then he went to France and worked in Loire Valley, and that's where he met Rene Moss. In case you haven't heard that name, is one of my favorite producers from Loire, kind of a pioneering star, a rock star natural winemaker from Loire. We had bottles of Moss for dinner at Wine Prom last year, if you remember. That's where he found his passion for organic biodynamic farming and this kind of like a low intervention style winemaking. Because all of his training before that was essentially very, very conventional, right? Like he went to University of Concepcion in school, and then he worked for that conventional winery in Chile. It wasn't until he started working in Loire Valley and meeting Rene Moss that he realized there are different ways of making wine. And then not only did he realize that that is actually the way that his people and people in his homeland in Chile have been making wine for the last 500 years. The vineyard here, so the vineyard in his homeland kept calling. So at age 29, Roberto returned to Bio Bio Valley, and then he wanted to rescue and kind of showcase some of South America's oldest vines that I was just telling you about. These freestanding 225-year-old old root Pais vines on the banks of Bio Bio River. And then, so he just went around basically contacting these abandoned vineyard owners of these abandoned vineyards, saying, may I lease your land? Can I farm it? He also worked with some people who are still farming and then buying grapes from them. And by the way, all up until this point, all the fruits that were being produced here were essentially gobbled up by these big guys. And they're paying them just pennies on the dollar. I'm just dirt cheap money, just as kind of a filler wine. Like they were never making varietal Pais. They were just using Pais as to fill out their Cabernet blend or whatever else that they were making up north, because this was just source of cheap wine. And imagine that, like ungrafted 225-year-old, vines, and they're essentially using it as a blender, like, blending a wine. And that's what was happening just 10, 15 years ago. So when Roberto came and saw that, it's like, that's not right. These wines should shine on their own. Not only that, these people should get paid more for farming these grapes the way that they have been doing for how long that they've been doing. So he started basically making wines on his own in Bio Bio Valley by buying these grapes and paying them much higher price than these northern wineries were paying them. Anyways, at this point, so he founded his Roberto Henriquez winery in 2015 in that star location that I showed you earlier. And then he farms all of his vineyards himself without herbicides or pesticides, with no irrigation. and adhering to that organic, sustainable practices like composting, biofertilizer, and water conservation, and all of that in mind. Um, and not only did he decide to keep kind of heritage of the place, of the wines, and want to survive, let that survive, but he also wanted to hold on to the actual winemaking technique. So all of his wines, even though he has background in all this modern day winemaking techniques and all of that, he keeps it very, very traditional. So that means he's using only natural winemaking techniques like natural carbonic maceration that happens in these big pipa, which is this big open top fermenter made from a local wood called Rowley. I'll show you in a second. I have pictures of that. Using native yeast, aging in old Rowley old wooden barrels, bottling without any filtration, chemical, just all by hand. Everything is hand harvested. Everything's worked by hand. So all of that, he decides to keep it because that's the way he wants to work with these grapes. He doesn't want to put any kind of a modern intake on it, and he just wants to keep it exactly traditional as it has always been for it. And in a way, it's so like it's inspiring because like he's a very talented winemaker. He could have gone up to north, worked for a bigger winery, and made much more money, led a much more comfortable life. But he's intentionally choosing to work here, work these hills with a very low yield vines by hand, making it traditionally, which obviously drives up the labor costs, and it's just much harder way to make wine. And he's deciding to intentionally trying to do it that way because this is the part of the Chilean history that he wants to tell. He doesn't want to tell. He doesn't want to be part of. This is his contribution to Chilean viticulture. And now that he's been doing it for so long, he's been doing it since 2015, and he's been successful, and he's been very internationally recognized at this point. And now that he's experienced some success, he's building out a project now, and then that's what I'm about to show you pictures of what he's doing there. He's building on a project. It's no longer just about the wine itself and the story he's trying to tell. Obviously, wine is important. This story of a tradition and these Mapuche people who've been farming grapes and making wine this way here for 500 plus years. By the way, all his wines, this wine included, Tierra de Pumas, these are all named after a Mapuche town that no longer exists. Most of them don't longer exist. But this area, that Santa Juana that I showed you earlier, that part of the land was called Tierra de Pumas because there were so many Pumas there. People call them Tierra de Pumas. So he's naming them all after these Mapuche towns that no longer exist because that's again, he's trying to keep his peoples and culture alive. But anyway, so he's trying to build out this whole community and trying to support entire community of people, from the growers, from the people who is living there. And I actually talked to him a little bit about kind of the pressure that he's feeling and how that has changed his winemaking, and just kind of his philosophy on how to approach risk and then managing risk and all of that. Because it's not only just him. Like, he's not the one who's just buying grapes, farming grapes and making wine. Now he has people who rely on him for livelihood and works for his winery. Different growers where he relies on the money that he pays them to make their livelihood. So his winery has become this kind of like a linchpin of the community. And it's a lot of pressure for this one young guy who just wanted to make good wine from these old vines to take on. And then I had a very interesting conversation with him about kind of what that means for his winemaking. And then we'll talk about that in a second when we get to that part of the picture. At this point, I wanted to show you all the pictures I took. And yes, this is a gratuitous just need for me to show you my photo slideshow that nobody has. So anyway, this is Roberto Henriquez right here. By the way, this vines back here are exactly what I'm talking about. These are like 220, 50-year-old vines. And you may think these are like very short. They don't look that big. They don't look tree. And it was very interesting because also coming from here, and then later I have some pictures from a producer we're featuring, Gonzalez Baez, from Pastillas, from Maule. And Maule, because of either the soil type or it's much hotter up there, the vines literally look like trees. They're like as tall as you are. They got trunks this big. They're literally trees. They're not grapevines. But these are just as old as they are, but they're much smaller, shorter, not as thick, but they're still very gnarly and old. Anyways, so I don't know if you can see this. This is another thing that also almost blew my mind. This is Pinot Noir. He found 10 Pinot Noir vines on his property. Again, we don't exactly know when these were planted, but these were planted amongst these 200 to 250-year-old vines. And then the youngest vines that he's found so far on the property that he could actually pinpoint are at least 100 to 150 years old. So at minimum, this Pinot Noir is 100 to 150 years old. So we're talking about 100 to 150-year-old ungrafted Pinot Noir vines growing in the middle of Chile, in the middle of fucking nowhere in Chile. And he's gonna propagate them. Is he gonna try to make a whole vineyard out of them, or at least make a plot and see how to do? So this is what it looks like. This is a vineyard. This is his old winery. This is where he used to make all his wines. He's building out a huge, brand new, gorgeous winery and a facility up top of the hill, which I'll show you in a second. But this is where he used to make all of it. And I have the inside pictures and videos later, and you'll see. And this is back in 2019. I mean, to this day, this is where the wines still make because the new winery is not finished yet. So this 2019 that we're tasting right now, it was made in this vineyard right here, a winery, and you'll see why I'm quoting that winery. But yeah, these are all vines, those ancient old vines. As you can see, they're not perfect rows. Like there's no machine harvesting here. Everything has to be done by hand. Here's another random rogue trincadera vines that he found. And for those of you who are not familiar, trincadera is a vine from port, making port. So Portuguese variety, again, at least 100 to 150 years old. So these are the Pinot Noir vines that I showed you earlier, that he made cuttings and then basically planted his vineyard. They're about 4 years old at this point. So, I mean, look at how steep this thing is. So it's just one plot of land that he has planted. And then he did tell me, like, everybody talks about how fickle, how hard Pinot Noir is to grow. And it's like, it's true. Like, it's so very hard. Nothing's really coming up. Here's another picture of him. I don't know if you can hear, but. Can you guys hear that, by the way? Give me a thumbs up real quick if you can hear that. No? Here. Let's see. Sure. Hold on. Where'd you go? Hey, run away. Can you guys hear that now? I can't see your faces right now. Can you give me a chat?
It's very low volume.
Okay.
Sun, it's more fresh, for Pinot Noir that it's very fast and ripe in the beginning of March here, I think it's perfect. And take care of them. But this is the first plantation of Prephyloxeric Pinot Noir in this area. We planted looking the south.
Sorry.
And take care of them.
Is that better?
This is the first plantation of Prephyloxeric Pinot Noir in this.
It's a little low, but I can hear it.
Look in the south, here is completely the opposite than the Hemisferio Norte, right?
Yeah.
If you look the south here, you are the vineyards receive less sun. It's more fresh, for Pinot Noir that it's very fast and ripe in the beginning of March here, I think it's perfect. And take care of them.
Anyways. So this is a winery that he's building on top. Some other grapes. This is a one Listan Blanco grape that he kind of just put in here like about 20 years ago or something, and it just grew on its own. This is a little still that he has. Oh yeah, so this is a winery. This is where this wine that we made right now.
I don't know, because upstairs like a Ferrari, and here is like, I don't know, a good old Toyota pickup. And all my life I make wine this way. And now
open top fermenters. The Raui wood is as traditional as gets in Chile. Look at that one. Got a big barrel in it.
Entonces cambia todo, o sea, no, that is why I believe that the most powerful skill is not the one is the mind.
Barrels.
It's empty. Mira, look, come.
Mira, anda, te vamos a ver. Ese está medio lleno.
I'm a little bit.
So that's the winery. This is the winery dog. Yeah, so this is literally our wine, where our wine is made. Again, quote unquote winery. So Roberto, this is Lagares. This is where you would foot stomp all the grapes. Concrete Lagares. This is lab. Yeah, does it look at the doing some math? Oh yeah, and this is not available in the States, but he's starting to make some cider with natural just fruit. He found some apples and stuff in this area, and it was actually quite good. I was really, really impressed with the quality of the cider. But yeah, completely bone dry cider that he's making here. So yeah, he made it. He got us to taste some of that. So this is a new winery that he's building out now. And this is going to be essentially the home of all of his new winemaking, as well as a guest reception and all of that. So this is a cellar part underneath the actual winery part. This is all the new concrete tanks that he purchased, about to be installed. And then this is where we tasted through his bunch of wines. Again, another shot of his winery. So these are all the wines that we tasted. These are available in the States. I mean, here's a Tierra de Pumas. This is 2024 vintage. So all these we tasted the new vintage that came out. But what was really interesting, exciting was these four. And these four are kind of micro vinification of those Pinot Noir grapes, the Listan Blanco, the tiny like 10 vines that he found in his vineyard. And he's making them each year just to kind of see the potential. And don't get me wrong, the wines were not great, but you could see the potential. And he himself would admit it. It's like, these wines are not great. They're not marketable. They're not sellable right now. But I want you to think about what these wines would be like if these vines were like 10 years older. So he's trying to essentially not only tell this, somebody said photos are not showing up. Sorry. What is happening? Is it showing up now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So not only is he part of kind of what the story that he's trying to tell and then contribute he's trying to make is trying to increase the kind of diversity of the varietal diversity of this region. Because it's not just the Pais, it's not just those mission grapes, but now he's finding these Pinot Noir. He found some Malbec grapes as well. This is Chancalera. Here's Malbec that he found. Again, 150-year-old Malbec vines, ungrafted. Like you can't find that anywhere else in the world. I mean, they're working with some of the most unique, singular essentially vines and ingredients in the world. And again, just because he just started making them in the new vineyard to propagate it, he's like, just imagine if this was 10 years older, 20 years older, where it'd be. And he's trying to increase, make the story from this region bigger by saying it wasn't just these missionary grapes that are planted here, but there are other things that have been growing here, and then we should be making more wines from that as well. So here's a Liston Blanco that we tasted. These were all super interesting, and then these are other wines. This is the inside of that winery upstairs now. So this wood, the inside paneling is all Rowley wood. So the local wood that he got here, they actually, every single one of these he chopped down. They planed it themselves because this lumber from Rowley didn't exist down here. Yeah, and he's been building this stuff for 4 years. He's putting all these engravings in. Took a year and a half for the local artist to come out and engrave all these things into his lodge, he's calling them. But yeah, so he's building this all. He's hoping that this is where he can host guests, people come stay. If the companies want to come, different people want to stay, can host them. So hopefully, if any of you ever visit Roberto in the future, you may be able to stay in this lodge and taste wine with him. Anyways, there's that. Came up here for lunch. So this is we made some food. He's making some salad. Here's Tyler. He's actually a wine shop owner from Pittsburgh. He was also visiting with his family. So he was making some, helping to cook. So yeah, we had lunch in his lodge in the middle. Very simple lunch of just some steak, sausage, and potatoes and salad, and yeah, just, and then here's me and Roberto right before I left. And this is kind of what it looks like. I mean, look at how gnarly that shit looks. I mean, that's 200 years old. And remember this photo, because when I show you another 250-year-old vines from Maule later, you will see how much bigger it is, even though they're same age. But yeah, I mean, here's another one. Yeah, like look how thick that trunk is. Like, that's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, last pictures with the dog. Yeah. So anyways, there you go. I probably didn't need to show you all of that, but you know, whatever. So that's what I'm talking about. Like when I went there, saw all of that, seeing what he's doing, working with these vines, even though he didn't have to, propagating these vines that are really hard. He could just stick with Pais and Muscatel and the things that are selling, that are doing well, but like he doesn't want to do that anymore. Like he wants to continue to tell different sides of the story. So now he's propagating Pinot Noir, propagating Malbec, propagating Listan Blanco. With a 10, 20 year in horizon. Because so now that there's a richer story to tell from this region. And tasting his wine is particularly interesting for me to taste this 2019 versus what I tasted his 2024 Tierra Pumas there. And it's the first time I noticed that his wines were a lot more, quote unquote, correct. And that's when we had a very interesting conversation about that kind of risk management, kind of the pressure of being the community now. And a lot of his wine, like this wine that we have today, is 0-0. There's no added sulfides to his wine, and for the longest time, majority of his wines were no added sulfides, 0-0 wines. Very wild, very kind of like on that line. It could fall apart anytime soon. It could be it was very nervous, like a nervy wine. But all the wines that I tasted from his winery were much more stable. It seemed much more. Much less kind of like neurotic, so to speak. And he was saying that he started to use some sulfites, a lot more sulfites than he used to. By more, he means, I mean, he's still putting out only like 15, 20, as opposed to before he wasn't putting any. And a lot of that was not necessarily around just the wine itself, but it was more about, listen, now, especially with this project that I have going on upstairs, with the cellar that are dealing, if I make a mistake, or if I make a ballsy, risky wine decision-making call and it doesn't sell, or the wine falls apart while it's being delivered, it's not just me whose livelihood has to suffer. Now I have all these people who work for me, all these people that I bought grapes from that I have to pay for, that rely on me, rely on this winery. It's not just me, this winery, Roberto Henriquez winery, to support them. And we have become kind of like the center place of the community. All the farmers, all the small town winemakers, and then also community people who come here to help me do the harvest, help me maintain the lodge, help me build out the lodge, the builders, everything starts from these wines that we make. And it has to be, now I have to be a lot more judicious in my risk taking. And it was interesting to talking about it because, like, obviously he's struggling with it. It's like, it's not that like he feels like he still has the creative freedom to create the kind of the wines that he wants to, but he has to think a lot more about kind of the marketability of the wine and all of that. So it would be really interesting to see where Roberto ends up. And I'm not saying like, first of all, this wine today that we were drinking, like it's not crazy. Like it's 2019, it's 0-0 wine, but like it's totally stable. It's not fucked up. And 2024 wasn't like super clean. And I'm not saying it's like a lab clean wine, but I could tell the difference. Just that, I mean, if you're drinking 0-0 versus like even 15 milligrams of ppm of sulfites, you can tell that little bit of difference, that subtle difference. So he's not putting like 70 ppm on his wine, but he's starting to put about 10 to 15. And a lot of that was his reasoning. And it was really interesting to see kind of winemakers' evolution, right? Like how to think about that as you get bigger. And then so it's the same thing, I guess, in everything in life, as you become more successful and then you have a team of people, it's no longer you're thinking about just you and then your livelihood and then your reputation. But not everything else has to depend on it. So, and it was really interesting to see how his wine was changing, his wine style was changing as a winemaker, as a creator, as an artist, and as a craftsman, because now there's more people relying on it. So, anyways, I just wanted to talk about that for a second. Anyways, let's talk about this wine real quick. So this is 100% ancient, again, 250 plus year old, own-rooted, organically dry farm Pais near Santa Juana in the Biobío Valley. Likely one of the oldest vineyard sites in Chile. This particular vineyard, Tierra de Pumas, where this comes from, was the 7th registered vineyard in the area in Biobío Valley. Not only Biobío, Itata, Maule, this whole kind of region. They had a vineyard registry. And then the vineyard where the fruit for this varietal comes from was a 7th vineyard that was registered. So likely this is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, vineyard sites in Chile, for sure. We talked about Pais for a second. So Listan Prieto, if you ever get a Listan Prieto bottle from Canary Island, it's the same grape, same thing as a Mission variety, as well as a Criolla in Argentina. But this is also where I started thinking about where my concept of, or this kind of wine world concept of old world versus new world was where I started questioning quite a bit, right? Like, yes, it all started from, these are, like I said, patrimonial varieties that came from Europe, right? It originated in Europe. But at this point, they are working with even older vines than what Europe has because of flux, right? And not only that, the wine style and the making has changed so dramatically in Europe versus here hasn't changed a bit since 500 years ago, since 1500s essentially. So how can we really call Europe the old world and Chile in America the new world? Like, what is the old world then? Even the varieties themselves, we call them mission varieties because they came through the missionaries and from Europe, patrimonial. But at this point, over the 500 years of growing here in isolation from the rest of the world, they've taken on their own mutations and become their own clonal kind of a thing. It is their own variety. Like genetically speaking, yes, they are linked to Listan Prieto in Canary Islands, but they're not the same. Just like Pinot Noir mutations like Pinot Gris came off, right? It is almost their own vineyard that has formed their own thing, which means it is almost unfair to talk about Pais as and compare that to Listan Prieto, because they're two completely different grapes now by this point. So again, is this the new world? Really? You know, when it's working with the oldest vines in its own root, where it's been there the longest. So, and even, you know, extrapolating there even more, like should we, if we're talking about old world, then shouldn't we really be talking about Turkey, Armenia, Georgia? Like, shouldn't that be the old world? I mean, that's where all the viticulture as we know of came from. And then, you know, it's the Phoenicians and Romans that took it to Europe, that the Europeans brought to the Americas. But yeah, so anyways, just going here, I started questioning all these things about new world versus old world. Is this, you know, really a useful concept to even talk about? You know, does it matter? How do we define that? You know, shouldn't, at the end of the day, does it even, you know, outside of this wine geekery between the wine people, like as a final consumer, this distinction between old world and new world, does that actually, is that helpful? Is that useful? Anyways, so coming here, looking at all those vineyards and the vines and looking at what Roberto was doing, I started questioning all those things. And then to this day, I still don't have an answer, and I'm not asking that rhetorically. Like, it is genuinely a question that I'm putting it out there, and I think it's something that's worth thinking about. Like, we talk about, and why does that matter in terms of a wine world? Is that, like, I'll give you Pinot Noir, for example. It is fucking impossible to talk about Pinot Noir without talking about Burgundy. Because every Pinot Noir is viewed through the lens of Burgundy, right? Willamette Valley, Oregon, we get an Oregon wine, Pinot Noir, and we say, well, it's not quite Burgundy. Or Oregon is as Burgundian as America gets or New World gets. Why is it that it is always shined through that lens? And is that necessarily a good thing? You know, if we were to remove all of that kind of preconception and the reference point and really be able to view the wines from almost like that beginner's mind with no reference point in the background and experience it for what it is, wouldn't that allow for a much richer, better, diverse, more fun wine experience? You know? Anyways, these are all the questions that I'm grappling with in my head because of this trip that I took with the Roberto. So I think it's something that you know, I'm posing it to you all for you to think about, and we can talk more about that in the after hours. But I just wanted to put it out there. Anyways, so these are harvested from the 3 hectare of old vines around the property at Santa Juana Vineyards. Fermented it in pipa, from open top fermente that you saw in that winery. Nothing but indigenous yeast. Whole cluster fermentation. Essentially, they throw everything in there, whole cluster, stems and everything, just to let it kind of ferment out. Pipeño, which we don't have a bottle of this month, is that exactly that, because it used to be made from pipa. Pipeño was something that people, as soon as it was finished fermenting, people would just take it straight from the tap from that Rowley fermenter and drink it, the farmers. That's what I call a pipeño. But to keeping that style, so he made this in a pipa. Then he aged it, 10% of it in old Rowley barrels, so smaller barrels that you saw in the winery, and then the rest in concrete for 11 months. So there's a little bit of aging, just to kind of round everything out. And like I mentioned, unfiltered, bottled, unfiltered, unfined, with absolutely no sulfites added here at any point during winemaking or at bottling. So we're talking about a 0-0 wine that is unbelievably stable. And looking at that winery, you know, like you saw what that looked like. Like, you know, it's not a squeaky clean lab coat, you know, stainless steel tank kind of winery, yet he's making wines with absolutely no sulfites added. It's a pretty risky thing. Everything is open top fermented as well. And then for him to create wines that are this clean and this stable is a sign of impeccable farming that he's doing there. Really incredible fruit. And then 2, just really good winemaking. Just knowing what to do, how to make sure that it doesn't fall apart, when to give it oxygen, when to not give it oxygen, knowing all those things is essentially what allows it to make wines like this. And that's why Roberto is kind of a rock star winemaker from this region. Anyways, holy shit, I've been talking for a while. It's already like 9:36 and we haven't even tasted the wine. So let's go through the tasting real quick. Who wants to take the appearance?
I'll do it.
All right. Well, Phil.
Okay. This wine has just a little bit of a haze. It's somewhat clear, but there's still there is some haze to it.
Yeah, agreed. I think, I think that's what I would say. I think this wine is clear, but it is, this wine is not filter refined. You can tell this wine is not filter refined.
And I would say it's I mean, really pretty color, but it would say it's not pale, but not medium either.
Yeah, it's like medium minus. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that.
medium minus, and the color is more like a rose.
Yeah, I mean,
It's almost, it's when I first poured it out, I thought it was a rosé, and it's not. It's got an orange tint to it, just a little bit.
yeah, exactly. It's this wine, the 24 that I tasted at the winery, was a beautiful light, like a ruby color. But you can tell, and this is 2019, so we've had like 6 years of age, 7 years of age of this thing at this point. So it's starting to show a little bit of sign, like you mentioned, little that orange kind of amberish hue coming in, a little bit like the coppery, orangey, ambery kind of color coming in. So I would say, for all intents and purposes in the exam, I would say this is probably ruby with a little bit of garnet starting to come in as well. I would say on this.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go with that. And I don't
ruby transitioning into garnet. I wouldn't fully call this garnet because I still do think there's a bit of a ruby left on this. But yeah,
it's too light to be garnet, I think.
Yeah,
it's too pale. It's got just I see just an orange.
Yeah, there's definitely like a brown, orange, copper.
Brown, orange, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And there's no bubbles or petulance.
Yep.
And I don't see any deposits.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing. Usually when we're talking about appearance, it's almost like, same thing that we talked about, but now we have wine that's a little bit different here. Like we definitely noticeably see some that orange, copper, amber, garnet kind of coming in here. Little bit of like the brick red, little bit of that like garnet, and then that's a sign of age. This wine is just starting to take on some age. Excellent. You get to pick the next person for.
Okay. Cecilia, you still there?
Yep. Sorry, I was letting the dogs out.
You want to do the nose?
Sure. I could turn my camera on too. Sorry if you hear dogs drinking water in the background. So it smells clean to me. Maybe like a little funky.
Yeah.
But mostly clean.
Yeah, it's not 100% clean here, right? This one is sound. Like there's nothing wrong, faulty with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But this wine definitely has a little bit of lifted VA. It's not a squeaky clean wine. And you can tell. I mean, it's 0-0. It's made in that winery that you saw. Like it is a rustic kind of a wine, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely some VA. There's a little bit of funk. It's a little dirty. It's not squeaky clean here. But yeah, definitely not faulty. It's sound for sure. Intensity.
So I feel like my nose is pretty far off the glass. So like medium plus?
Yeah, I'm gonna call it here. Yeah, I'm gonna call that a medium plus as well. Of all of his Thais bottling, They're all very different because they come from different places, different plots. But this particular one that I thought was particularly expressive, the Tierra Pumas. It was my favorite. There's two that really stands out. It's the Pais Franco and then Tierra Pumas. But the Tierra Puma is my favorite for that reason. All right, but yeah, definitely medium plus. I agree. Medium plus aromas of vegan.
I feel like there's a little floral,
Yeah,
like a hint of like rose,
yeah,
violet maybe.
yeah. Totally. I get like purple flower, like little rose flower, like yeah. The violet is probably where my head will go right on this thing, but yeah, really kind of like a pretty floral thing. Not like super floral. It's not like a
Yeah,
muscat or like peony or anything like that. But
like a hint.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Very, very something pretty up top for sure.
I don't get any green fruit.
Nope,
I don't get any I don't get any citrus.
nope.
I don't think I get any stone fruit either.
Nope.
No tropical for me.
Nope.
I get cranberry, raspberry,
Yeah.
cherry, like a lot of red fruit for me.
Yeah, a lot of red here. Like red, like tart red cherry really comes to me. I think the cranberry call is a fantastic red currant. A lot of that for sure. Like a
I
tart
honestly, I'm not sure I know what red currant smells like, but
red. Any blackbird?
I don't, maybe some black cherry, but
Yeah, there's a little bit of black here as well. It's not just the red, mostly red. I would still call this very, very red, but there's a little tinge of black here as well. Yeah.
it doesn't taste dried, or it doesn't smell dried to me.
Yeah, the
It
fruit.
smells really fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, fruit is really fresh, really, really ripe, ripe but fresh. Yeah, 7 years on the bottle, and still, and this is a shit that everybody gives shit about Pais. Like Pais, even the Chileans. I have some Chilean friends. Before I went to Chile, when I told them that I was going down there to taste some Pais with the winemaker, they're like Pais, oh, pepeño, they give you headache. Like it's terrible wines. Then I was like, not the kind of Pais I'm gonna go drink. But this is the kind of stuff that like those are things that you can only drink as soon as it comes out of the winery. Like it can't age. I'm like, well, here's the point. Here's a 7-year-old Pais, and it's still to me smelling very fresh. Like it's not smelling tired. It's still got the very fresh, bright, tart cherries and red fruit and all that stuff. Um, cool. Any herbaceous? Any herbal?
I don't get herbal, but I get like a little black pepper, I think.
So you get like a pepper spice. So
Yeah.
I get that. Here's the thing about Pais in general, but particularly this one. What I love about it is that there's always this kind of a savory edge. And I've only really had much Pais from Chile. I've had mission grade from California before, but maybe like once. I've never had a Criollo. No, I've had a Criollo, but a lot of it is also blending grape variety in Malbec in Argentina. But as far as the varietal bottling goes, Chilean Pais is mostly what I had. So maybe, and this is a leading sentence that I'm saying, but I've always associated Pais with a little bit of that kind of herbaceous edge. There's always something kind of like not a rosemary and thyme, but like bay leaves or some sort of like that kind of like a vegetable kind of a savoriness running through. But on this trip is what I realized what it is that's happening. So in that picture that I was showing there, if you go to Roberto's property, like you see mountain on the one side and mountain on the other side. And in 2013, by the way, there's this huge wildfire. Wildfire down there is a huge threat to all the wine viticulture down there. In 2013, there was a huge wildfire in Santa Juana and Biobío Valley. And Roberto was telling me literally he and a few of the employees, they literally stuck around there fighting fire. I mean, just hosing, wetting everything around the vineyard, trying to save their vineyards. And the winery that I showed you earlier, they were just coming in close and close. And then he stayed like, they'd be up 17 hours just like fighting this fire and then making sure that it doesn't burn down. And he was able to save the winery and the vineyard around there. But a lot of that, part of the reason why wildfire is happening so much out there is not only because global warming, everything is getting drier, everything is getting warmer, but during the Pinochet era, which was a dictator that came to power in Chile and ruled the land for 27 years, fascist dictator, he planted pine trees and particularly eucalyptus all over this region. Because eucalyptus is a much faster growing tree than the native trees that grow, rowley trees and the native trees that go down there. And I told you earlier how logging was a big thing here. So he basically designated this area to be a logging part of Chile. So he just basically plastered the land with eucalyptus and pine trees, and mostly eucalyptus trees. And it was crazy because when we're on the cycling trip, we're talking about how a lot of people from California Bay Area were like, this feels a lot like Bay Area because there's eucalyptus tree everywhere. And we're like, why is a eucalyptus tree here everywhere? And then we learned it was a Pinochet legacy. And because of that, eucalyptus and pine both very rich in sap and oil, particularly eucalyptus, really high in oil, and then it sheds leaves everywhere. So when leaves are shed, dries and it's oily and it's dry and it's hot, it's just a wildfire happens all the time. And so Roberto, what he's doing is his vision for the next 10 years is he wants to remove all the eucalyptus trees around his vineyards and then replace them with the indigenous trees. Now back into planting rowley trees. So he has a program actually, every bottle that he sells goes into conservation effort, and he plants at least one rowley tree for each bottle that's sold. So he does all of those things. Again, going back to that kind of like the community concept, it's like it's not just about me and the survival, but like everybody depends on this thing. If this ship burns down, that we're all hurt. So like we gotta change the tree lines around here. So he's doing things like that. But anyways, eucalyptus is everywhere in this region, and I think, obviously there's no chemical testing done to see if there's eucalyptus here. Ever since knowing that, now every Chilean país that I've come across has some eucalyptus in it. There's this like mentally kind of minty herbaceous vegetableness. I used to call it bay leaves, but I don't know if you guys get any of it in this wine. But almost this wine, even the next two wines that we're about to feature in this month's box, I get some eucalyptus. Like I get some bay leaves, I get some menthol, I get some mint on this thing. There's some sort of like herbaceous thing going on here. And again, I don't know. I need to continue to taste and study País more to really come to my own conclusion on it. But what I thought was innately quality of a País, I'm starting to think it's actually eucalyptus that Pinochet planted in this area that's lending this flavor to the País planted. Because it's not just País. The reason I say that is because it's not just País, because I saw that with some of the white wines as well that's planted around eucalyptus, vineyards that are planted around eucalyptus. And eucalyptus is notoriously really
It's strong.
Yeah, influential, strong and influential on wine. Like a lot of Australian wines have eucalyptus, like Shiraz, McPherson has a lot of eucalyptus running through their wines. It's not because the wines taste like that. It's because there are eucalyptus trees everywhere, and there are parts of California who also smell like that. So it's not shocking to think that there's eucalyptus in Chilean wines, particularly this part of Chile, because there's eucalyptus trees everywhere essentially. So, but that's to say, I get some like mentally minty. Okay, it may be psychosomatic. But I definitely get some herbaceous thing on this wine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's power suggestion, but I can smell eucalyptus now.
But yeah, I definitely get some eucalyptus, like mentally bay leaf, that kind of thing going on here as well. Anything? So you guys some like a spice thing? Any minerality here?
I don't smell any minerality now.
Yeah, I don't get a whole lot. Maybe like just a touch of like a little bit like a crushed rock, like a wet rock, crushed rock, some sort of like rockiness, but not huge. Like it's not hugely minerally, but there's definitely some minerality here for sure. Any secondary, any tertiary?
Not for me.
Yeah, it's still again
Really
6 years
fresh. Yeah.
later, still fresh, still very primary, which is shocking. Like people again, everybody's talking so much shit on Pais, but still holding very strong 7 years later. All right, you get to pick the next person for the palette.
Any volunteers?
I will try.
All
I'm
right, then.
nice to see you guys. I'm recovering from a terrible, terrible cold. So, like everything you're trying to, I haven't been able to smell anything. So, so who knows if I'm going to be able to taste anything? But
Okay.
we'll hit it, and you guys will fill in with what I'm missing here. So on the sweetness, I was thinking medium dry. But again, I could be so off. Is that what we're working
Oh.
on? No, what are we working on?
Yeah, sweetness. So this one, in the wine world, this medium dry, it would be what Americans would call like dessert wine sweet.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry. Am I on the right section?
Yeah, palate.
Yeah.
Sweetness.
Okay, yeah. Because for some reason my iPad won't let me see you guys and this the same time. So I'm now just looking at the sheet. Anyways, so for palate, for sweetness, so I guess we're going to dry.
This
Off
wine is
dry.
dry.
Yes.
This wine
Yes.
is dry.
Well, so I was thinking it's dry. I just wasn't sure like where I am in the, spectrum of dry. I definitely was not thinking it was sweet.
Like 95% of the wines in the world are dry. Like sweet wines are very rare things. And off dry, even off dry, like you'll be able to like notice sugar in the wine. Like this is not, to me, there's absolutely no sugar in this. There may be some fruit, but like a lot of generous fruit, but yeah, no
Okay.
sugar. Acidity.
I'm thinking medium. To medium plus.
I'll go. Yeah, this is like right high in the medium, low in the medium plus. But I think I'm totally with you. I think I'm gonna land somewhere in the medium.
Yeah, I mean, because when I was switching around, like, because when you go to tannin, like, I'm feeling a little bit of the grittiness, like a little bit of tannin, but not a ton of tannin, unless my taste buds are all screwed up.
No, the little tannin here, not usually tannin, but there's some grip here.
There's a little bit of like the grip. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, low in the medium, kind of medium minus. It's still got some textural grip here, tannin. So yeah, medium, high medium plus acid. I'll call this about like medium. I don't want to go all the way to medium. I'll probably call this medium minus 10. And this also makes sense. The way this wine is made is kind of like that carbonic maceration. It's like semi-carbonic maceration. So they take whole cluster grapes and then basically throw them all into that Rowley open top fermenter and then just let it naturally ferment. So yes, they're not it's like semi-carbonic, right? Like where they don't put a blanket of CO2 on top. So naturally the weight of the berries on top crushes some of the berries at the bottom. They ferment, CO2 rises to the top. So the top portions of it becomes anaerobic fermentation, which is the carbonic maceration. So when that happens, all the juice just kind of flows out through those berries and comes out to the bottom. So it's not in with the skins or the stems for a very long time. So it's very rare that in a carbonically macerated wine production that you're going to have huge tannin because it just doesn't spend that much time in contact with the skin stems. So medium minus 10 makes total sense. Alcohol.
Medium. Low,
Yeah,
low, medium. You think it's on the higher side?
No, I don't think. I think it's low side.
Yeah, low side. Yeah.
11.5. So there you go.
Medium body.
Wow, this is only 11.5. Drink the whole bottle tonight. Body.
Like a medium minus.
I'm gonna call this one medium minus body. This thing, like I'm not quite on the medium, but yeah, it's not nothing, but
Right.
it's not totally onto. I'm not fully convinced it's 2%. I'm gonna call this like 1%. So medium minus is what I call this. No
No
mousse,
mousse.
obviously. Flavor intensity.
So this is where I'm going to have a hard time because my taste buds are not like functioning right now. I think it would be medium. Like I'm not like, it's not like floating up into my nose and, kind of like, I don't know. So I don't know. I think it's medium, but
Agreed. On the nose, I feel like this is much more expressive than it is on the palate. But it's not shy. I taste everything, but yeah, it's not like exploding as much as on the nose. So I'm gonna call this one medium as well.
all right.
I mean, I don't know if you can't taste it, but do you confirm everything that Cecilia called out?
I will confirm what Cecilia said. I sadly cannot. Normally, I totally can taste all of or smell all, or align with the grid and all of the different primary aromas and flavors. But right now, I am not the one to be. So we're gonna lean on Cecilia.
Oh, good. I'm totally with everything that Cecilia called it. I think it's that like the rose petal, that violet with the floral things there is pretty, and particularly this Tierra de Pumas of all his wines. Like there are other bites bottom that he has is much deeper, blacker, like rounder and darker. I've always found this Tierra de Pumas to be his lightest, brightest, most elegant, kind of like a layered, subtle, understated kind of a bottling, and really pretty. And a lot of that is this kind of like really pretty floral, rose petal, violet thing going on here, which is really nice. All the red fruit. I mean, there's hands red currant.
I can definitely taste red fruit. I just can't distinguish between them.
Yeah, red cherry. I mean, this is like the perfect like Thanksgiving table wine. Like if you ever want to do that, Thanksgiving.
The one thing that stood out to me was tomato leaf. And maybe it's just because my whatever. I feel like I am finding something herbaceous, and it's more like this tomato leaf.
Yeah.
But I might just be making that up in my head.
No, like I said, I've always said ice has this herbaceous edge to it, and to me, that's what makes it.
Because maybe that's what I'm picking up, that I can't taste anything else.
Yeah, but now I'm starting to think that it may be the eucalyptus, all the fucking eucalyptus that.
Well, it could be my cold medicine as well. So
or it could be your cold medicine, yeah. But,
there's eucalyptus in there or something.
Yeah, you're calling it tomato leaf. I'm calling it eucalyptus, bay leaf. But like we're all agreeing that there's some sort of kind of like an herbaceous, savory thing here. It's not just the fruit and the flower.
Right.
And to Cecilia's point about the pepper, I actually get the pepper more on the palate than on the nose. On the nose, I got a lot more of the fruit and the flower, and then the menthol, the minty thing. But here, I definitely get some pepper on the palate. And on the palate, I actually get the minerality here. Like I get a lot more of the granitic kind of like. There's a lot. Not only because the carbonic maceration, the semi-carbonic that naturally happens here, just a way of winemaking, traditional winemaking here, but there's a lot of similarity between Beaujolais and here as well. That kind of bright style, full carb, like the Beaujolais style. I get some of that, and so I get like, and then the soil type also here is granitic as well. So I get some of that granitic kind of minerality running through here on the palate as well. Any secondary, any tertiary things for you?
No, I'm going to agree with Cecilia. Was not picking up anything that, was odd, that my nose is
Me neither.
finding. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, the fact that this is 7 years old and then it's still
right?
is beautiful. It's amazing. Uh, all
Okay.
right, finish. How long do the flavors stick around?
Okay, so maybe Cecilia or Phil can jump in because I'm not like they're sticking around, but I don't know if it's not for very long, and I might be totally off.
What do you think, Cecilia?
For me, it's sticking around a while.
Okay. I'm just having a bad night.
What would you call it? Call the length.
Like medium plus, it's still sitting there for me, but cold sucks.
Yeah. So here's the thing about this wine. This is the kind of wine that some people are like, I so light, I don't like especially if you're like a big cab Zen kind of drinker, you're like so light, like I don't know anything. But I feel like as you drink wine for a long time, once you become like a seasoned wine drinker,
Mhm.
just like everything in life, like at first you like things that are like so in your face and intense and like you want like the sensory overload kind of experience because like exciting. But in the longevity, like wanting to drink
Mhm.
something for a long time, really you start to appreciate a lot more subtleties in wine,
Mhm.
the nuances, those kind of things. And to me, this is that wine. This is
Mhm.
like it's not in your face. It's not like it's not showy like that. But it is just so elegant and subdued and subtle, and there are like layers here. And even the finish, like it's not like, oh my God, I taste that long and long, but like there's a subtle, just kind of hints of things that like just linger around. And yeah, it's like okay, go on. It completely changed it now. Like I get a lot of like a savory now. Like initially it hits with the cranberry, raspberry. I get some of that bay leaf and all that coming in. And then I mean, maybe this is where the tertiary is starting to come in. I do notice at the very end of the palate, I start to get a little bit of like the oxidative edge, like a little bit of that, like the almond, like walnut, like a little
Hmm.
body edge
Mhm.
just starting to creep in. So it is starting to show a little bit of tertiary, just a hint, but
Mhm.
on the palate, but still by all means very, very fresh in the primary. So I'm also going to call this kind of like medium plus, like low in the medium plus, high in the medium. If you land on medium, I think this is totally agreeable. But because of that oxidative edge that is like kind of lingering on to medium plus, I'm going to
Mhm.
plus medium plus as well. All right, conclusion. Let's bring it all home.
So
How good is this wine and would you age it?
I think it's gotten mostly mediums and medium pluses and has been stable. And you've noted, given its age, it's still super bright. I think it's very good. But
Yeah.
again, I'm, impaired here.
I agree. I mean, we call it, I mean, this wine is very balanced. If anything,
Yeah,
it's like incredibly well balanced to me. Like there's
yeah.
nothing sticking out here. Everything's harmonious. Everything's great, pretty, layered. And then intensity wise, we called it medium plus on the nose, medium on the
Mhm.
palate. That's splitting between medium plus. Complexity, we had all primary at first, like rose
Yeah.
petals, red fruit, a little bit of black fruit, but then some of that savory herbaceous thing, granitic pepper, granitic minerality. But then on the palate, I started to notice a little bit of oxidative edge just at the end, just ever so slightly, a little bit of a nutty edge. So I'll call that like medium, like high end of medium. And then the length, we call this somewhere between medium plus, but landing,
Yeah.
so if you look at all of that balance, medium to medium plus intensity, high end of medium intensity, sorry, complexity, and then medium to medium plus uh, um, length. So we're definitely landing somewhere between medium and medium plus. Um, but being generous, I'm gonna give it very good as well. But if you call this
Mhm.
good, I think it's completely reasonable.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I like this kind of, I mean, I like the style and, whenever it's in the boxes, it's kind of my favorite, probably my favorite months.
Yeah,
Um,
you mean this kind of like a subtle, like
yeah.
a yeah, the lighter style of
Hmm.
red? Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
And I used
Uh,
to think that I was like just a big, full red kind of,
Right.
you know, drinker, and these are much more fun and more tasty and more, you know, kind of
Yeah.
intellectual. They're not
Yeah.
muscly.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Uh, and then
Oh yeah.
would you age this?
So, well, you said, I mean, it's so maybe you could age it for another couple of years, or do you think it's just on the edge now where it might, you know, kind of start to degrade? But it's definitely drinkable now, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's
And
drinking beautifully right now. I think it's
yeah,
a
like
perfect
it's
size.
really nice. So is, you know, I guess it would be interesting to hold on to it for a couple of years just to see where it
Agreed.
goes. And
Ju-
then, you know, if, you know, yeah, but this is great right now.
Yeah. I said this is drinking beautifully, drinking now, but knowing that that tertiary, that nuttiness is just
Right.
starting
It's
creep
starting
in.
to creep in.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna last a whole lot
Oh,
longer.
okay.
So I'll say this will probably at its peak, probably in about 2 to 3 years, is what I would say.
Hmm.
So, but overall, 10-year of aging period is what we're talking about for a país. Again, great that everybody has been, you know, talking shit about.
Yeah.
It's pretty unbelievable. Pretty unbelievable. Uh, all right, cool. Well, sorry that presentation went way long, but
It was fascinating. No,
good.
I'm in this month because I just wanted to hear about your trip and see the
Well,
pictures and
yeah.
taste the wine. But it's
I'm glad that somebody wants to see my photo slideshow. So.
it's like the double month because I'm gonna, you know, be spending a lot of time on on video. So
Yeah.
and watching videos and yeah.
Good. Did you guys like this one? Did everybody like this one? Yeah? Oh,
Oh, we
okay.
got some thumbs up. Yep. I did. I think I'll like it better when I can actually taste it. So I'm excited. And
Yeah.
I've only had a glass because I'm not gonna stay long. I'm gonna actually jump off shortly in a little bit just to, you know.
Cool.
I've been going to bed really early trying to get rid of this stupid cold.
Well,
But
put it down, get some sleep, and then you can come
yeah.
back to it tomorrow for the day after.
Yeah.
All right. Let's play everybody's favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy paying for this on the retail shelf? It is a 7-year-old wine. It's 2019. It is made by a rock star, kind of a winemaker. There's not a whole lot made. He makes very little wine of this, but probably this vintage. But it is Chile. So how much do you think this is? How much would you be happy paying for this on a retail store? This is also an interesting thing with the Chilean month always, which is talking about the price. There's this, you know, whether good or bad, it also is a blessing and a curse, but Chilean wines are kind of like known to be cheap wines.
They're
In fact,
affordable. Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to sell expensive Chile wines. People are like, I don't know, I don't want to pay. It's like Chinese food, you know? People are like, Chinese food should be cheap. I go, why? You know, like, why would real authentic Chinese food be cheap? Like, you know, I get it if it's like around the corner, like a Americanized Chinese food, but like real authentic Chinese food, for some reason, because of that, I mean, that's the best analogy for like Chilean ones, I feel like. To me, this is like a real authentic Chilean wine. So how much do you think this should be when, you know, the bad American Chinese version of Chilean wine costs $9, $10 on a grocery shelf, you know? All right,
And I am so wrong.
Dana, 40-40, Cecilia,
I have not
35-30.
drank Chilean wine except for probably in your boxes for
Yeah.
ever.
Phil, 25-28. Chris, 18-26. Okay. Bad.
That's a bigger range than usual, I feel like.
That is a huge range.
I'm so
Man.
off tonight. Usually I would probably be down a little bit, but whatever.
And the correct answer is Dana. This would be $40.
Really?
This is $40.
Really?
Yes. So think about that. I mean, just look at all of your faces right now. Like, just, Chilean wine hitting $40 on a shelf, regardless of the wine, that is just a sticker shock to begin with, right? People are just like, what? Like, how could Chilean wines be that expensive?
But where are you finding this particular bottle? And
Exactly. You're not finding this in a grocery shop. You're going
no,
to a very specialized store. Like
yeah,
in uh, in DC, I
yeah,
mean, we're talking about domestic, Gran Cata, like places like the wine shops that are not
yeah,
even like the destination wine shops, essentially.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like this, like Charles brought this up, like I don't know, it was maybe a couple sessions ago, where he was like, "What wine stores is Un going to that these things are like?" I feel like you have to set a like, here's the standard, like you like pick Domestique or like MacArthur's or Schneider's and be like, this
Yeah,
is how much this would be there.
yeah.
But yeah, like I mean. This is an incredible wine, man. I feel like I got in my head, like, you're like, okay, it's Chilean wine, like it's cheap, like, but yeah, like I would gladly pay a lot more than I said for this, but I was playing the game and I got bit.
Yeah, and this is kind of like what I was referring to earlier. Not only that kind of beginner's mind, looking everything through the reference point of what has already existed, new world, old world, but it also plays here, right? Like because we're viewing all Chilean wine through the lens of this northern Chilean industrial fucking wine mega complex, and their $8 wines that you find, $8 to $10 wines that you find on the grocery shelf, we view all Chilean wines to be this homogenous thing, when in fact, to me, this is more of Chilean wine. Like that is much more modern Chilean, right? Like that is French companies coming to invest millions of dollars in parts of Chile that knew that they could harvest easily,
Yeah.
get easy, good fruit, and making just fuck ton of it, and then and selling it really cheap. This is vines that have been here since 1500s, making the
Right. This
same
is
thing.
amazing. I mean, I'm so excited. And when I have to tell you, I don't buy wine in a wine. I mean, there's one wine store in Baltimore that I'll buy wine, well, maybe one and a half. Like, there's one that definitely specializes in natural wines. And actually, this guy, Ryan, who's moved to DC, is working, I don't know, he used to work at this wine store. He's now working at a wine store in DC. I don't know if it's Domestique, but it's one of the fancy ones. Anyways, that's the only place that I'll buy wine, and because I can find sometimes wines that you suggest, or because they anyways, I don't buy wine anymore at like a regular wine store. So I have not been buying Chilean wine. Like I have not even thought about Chilean wine, like, like I did maybe when I was, 20 years younger and
Right.
would buy the cheap wine. You know what I
That-
mean?
Yeah, and
And then I would
again,
drink it. Like
I was the same way. My perception of Chilean wine, and I'm not trying to put shame on anybody because I was the same way. My perception of Chilean wine is always that big, bold, Bordeaux blend from northern Chile around Santiago area
right.
that is cheap, that is, best bang for your buck. But then I saw this, and I was like, you know what? These guys should be able to charge $40 a bottle.
Right.
What they're doing is so much more meaningful, is so much more soulful, and so much more authentic than anything that's happening up north.
Yeah.
And the
Well, I
fact
guess that's what I assign my value is to, kind of, I would have gone higher, but then I was like, because this is so special. And I mean, the experience and anyways,
Data, like as an art person, like this
Yeah.
is kind of the thing where it comes on, like at what point, how do you price
right.
art?
Yeah.
Like it's the same kind of thing,
It's absolutely, it's like, it's your eye. It's not about what other things you have in your house that it, kind of fits with. It's, just, it speaks to you.
Yeah. And to me, this is, I mean, what he's trying to do with this thing, like he's trying to tell a story with this juice inside the bottle. It's not just like, here's a tasty beverage, have it. But he's like trying to tell the Chilean viticulture history, 500-year-old Chilean history, viticulture history. You know, the current movement and what's happening in this particular
Yeah.
place within Chile, particular point in Chilean history, and he's trying to put it all. And he's also trying to put the kind of like the Mapuche history here, like naming it after the towns that it comes from. Like he's trying to tell a story with this bottle.
So does he have a lot of support from like kind of, I mean, clearly that he's creating a, you know, stable, you know, kind of economy, employment, but do the surrounding kind of, I don't want to call it political, but do that like does the town or the whatever they call those you know, kind of structures, does he have a lot of support from them to you know, kind of support him in this, you know, kind of development? And
yeah, within that area, he's a rock star. Everybody knows Roberto. Even the other winemakers, like, so each winemaker that I met, I'm like, who are some other producers in Chile that you think are doing something really incredible work that you are interested, that you respect? And every single one of us, like Roberto, what he's doing in Bio Bio is fantastic. And it's funny, they're all naming each other's as well. So I'm like, it's just like a fucking cartel. Like, why do you but yeah, definitely, everybody loves Roberto. It's also, if you ever meet him, like he's the nicest guy. And you know, even with the success and the international recognition that he's experienced now with his work, like he's the most humble guy ever. Like he's just like, he has no ego about him. He's like, dude, I'm just trying to make the best wine that I can while providing as much opportunity as I could to this community. And I'm happy to be that person, you know, because I just happen to have that opportunity, you know.
Well, we need to know when his lodge is done, because that looks so freaking cool.
It's awesome. It's incredible. But yeah, I'll definitely let you guys know. I mean, I haven't, like, we've been exchanging texts ever since I got back. And yeah, he just like reaches out randomly. He's like, hey, how you doing? Everything's good. He was like the other day, he's like, I heard that it snowed a lot in DC. Like, you okay? I was like, damn, Roberto.
That's awesome.
And he does come to DC sometimes. So next time, he's like, he also knows the Gran Cata guys. They're actually Chilean, the Gran Cata guys. So they're like, yeah, every time I come up there, I usually do a tasting at Gran Cata. But I was like, maybe next time we can do it with your wine club. Like, absolutely. I'd love to have that opportunity. So,
be a live wine club.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways.
I mean, in person.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions about anything that I just went over, from the wine, from Bio Bio to?
I mean, I just like chiming in on the like old world, new world stuff. I have it's a more spirit forward book, but it's by it's called like Spirits of Latin America by Ivy Mix, who runs a bar in New York. But so she is writing about like agave spirits, rum, and pisco, but like through the pisco chapters, right? It was all about how like, right, Spanish mission, like in colonizing Latin America, right?
Yeah.
You need to convert the natives, and to convert the natives, you need the blood of Christ. And so like the first thing, like you have to grow wine to be able to do communion. And so like, and at first it was a like very shitty wine that eventually, as like the, like, you know, they started bringing over better grapes and taking more care in making the wine. But then it also then got into like the like where the friars came from in Spain. Typically, I think I think it was mostly the Franciscans tended toward like the northeast and like Galicia, and like so there was some like a lot more of the obviously the Canary Island varietals, because of like, you know, they stop over there, but then also a lot of the like wines that were, or grape varietals that were indigenous to northeastern Spain, and like I guess then also like Basque Country, kind of like that northern part of Spain came over. Oh, hi Glenn. Yeah, you want to jump? But yeah, no, just that like, yeah, like what is new is old, what is old is new. That like, yeah, like that it's a snapshot in time of like that part of the 1500 Spain, and like the ungrafted thing. And how few places there are in Europe. Like when Hadley and I were in Portugal, we were in like a spot just outside of Lisbon that had super sandy soil, and that is like they were untouched by phylloxera. But it's like all in Europe, it's this like you have like these extenuating circumstances that meant you were spared versus like
Right.
whole valleys of pre-phylloxera grapes.
Exactly.
But yeah. And so Glenn is jumping on everything. That's gonna mute so people can tell you're jumping. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting, I was already kind of starting to think about the whole old world, new world concept. The way I was taught was like old world is Europe, new world is basically anywhere outside of Europe. And then, but stylistically also is different. Like old world just tends to be a lot more, it's less fruit, a lot more structure of the wine, different things. And then the new world is a lot more fruit forward, the wine style. But like that is such a big generalization, and quite frankly, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think, serve the public correctly or rightfully. Um, yeah, again, like I haven't thought about this enough. These are all the thoughts and questions that are popping up in my head right now that I'm grappling with it.
There's a book in you, Un, that you're gonna write about this.
Yeah, but like, why is everything so?
And you're gonna change the whole industry.
I mean, it's just like this whole new world is, again, going back to that lens of like the reference lens. It's like new world is always seen through the old world.
Yeah.
There's why they're called a new world. Like, and it's just like, imagine if we can talk about Pinot Noir without Burgundy. Like, imagine if we could talk about Riesling without German. Like, imagine we could talk about Pais without that. And not only that, but like, it's actually even older than what's happening in the old world. Like, yeah, so I need to flush all this out. Like, I'm not at a point where
I think we'll be like talking about this a lot over the next month.
Yeah, no, totally. It's interesting you say that. So one of the things that I immediately got interested in and started tasting around already, and a lot of it was also inspired by the latest. You guys have seen that Psalm documentary that was like popular like 20 years ago, whatever. They're on their fourth one now, but it's not about Psalm, but it's still called Psalm. But
Psalm. Oh, right.
Yeah.
No, I still have not seen. Okay, I'm gonna have to put that on the list.
The fourth one is called The Most Dangerous Wine in the World, and it's about this Armenian winemaker who goes to Iran to smuggle grapes from Iran back to Armenia. This wine is fascinating. So that coupled with this question of what's old world, what's new world, what's old is new, what's new is old, to Chris's point, all of that coupled, I'm like, I need to taste Armenian wines. The oldest, the proof of winemaking in human history used to be in Georgia, but now they just recently found one in Armenia. So now the oldest one exists in Armenia. I mean, let's be real. Armenia, Lebanon, that whole area was one area. It wasn't separate countries back then. But still, like right now, modern day Armenia is where the oldest evidence of winemaking exists now. So you can say everything, basically, all viticulture, every wine that we drink now, essentially stemmed from
there.
So now I'm like, I really need to go taste Armenian. So I started tasting through Armenian wine. So there may be Armenian box coming soon, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So other thing that Chris and I have talked about a lot is like the idea of classic literature. And this kind of reminds me of the old world, new world conversation, that like the idea that we're living through anything that it's like classics always have to be older than where you are. And like I've read incredible books that were published in the past few years. It's like, well, this isn't a classic that's so new. And I feel like the old world, new world thing, it's also like, it has to be old for it to be like important.
But then it's like, but then the phylloxera thing turns out on its head, right? They're like recency bias, but it's like, but when the vines are older in the like newer settled place.
And people lived through the old world too. Like, I'm sure they didn't think this is the best, like people will be fantasizing about this wine in 300 years. But you never think that you're living through a really important
exactly.
And to your like Armenian Georgian wine, but there's a book called Tasting the Past.
Ooh.
Hard to. It's about a guy who he like it's like a journalist who then like went on a deep dive of he was like on assignment somewhere in the Holy Land and like tasted a wine made like Cresmian is a vineyard in Bethlehem that like makes also brandy, but like right. So he went down this like rabbit hole of like what a wine like a unknown grape varietal in a vineyard in Israel have been something that like people 2,000 years ago would have drank and so he's like chasing these varietals back and I feel like we've talked about it that like oh like this grape has the same name as this thing. Like maybe they're related, maybe they're like, oh, like they say this is part Cabernet Franc and part whatever. And so it gets into the like, and now like the like DNA analysis of a lot of the grape varietals to try to like find out what is the oldest. And then he like kind of eventually is what is the point of finding out what is the oldest grape varietal? Like it's also like it's a great wine. But it's an interesting book on like origins of wine and chasing it with.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like
tasting the past, the science of flavor and the search for the origins of wine.
Who's the author?
It's Kevin
Begos.
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 Yeah. Right now, I can only find it as an ebook on bookshop.org. But
we have a hard copy, and once I Hadley finished it, and I am working on it now. Once I finish it, we can pass it around.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a good complement to all the things I'm thinking about right now. So,
what is our communal hard-on for old stuff?
Yeah.
Like what is the point?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you guys will hopefully I think you guys are all sensing it already, but as a month goes on, you'll get to see. But like, yeah, this trip like made me think about all these different things. Like, it made me question so many things that I thought to be just took it for granted without really like questioning it. This whole new world, old world thing, reference point setting, what is possible. Yeah, I mean, just so many things. So, yeah, hopefully I get to share all of that through the month.
Do you, so Chile seems to have a lot in common with California, both in history and geography. Like West Coast, mountain valley, mountain very and then you have the like perpendicular valley dominate. Like you're kind of working your way up. Do you think there's anything to that of like? And it's obviously in this other part of the other southern hemisphere, but you're right. You're working from Southern California up to Northern California,
100%.
Northern Chile.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're dead on. So there's a whole people compare like the Santiago, the up north of the Casablanca Valley, the Colchagua, what basically all the quote unquote best Chilean wines come from. That is essentially Napa Valley. That's the Northern California, Sonoma, Napa, right? Mm-hmm. And then really Napa, because it's all Cabernet and Bordeaux.
Yeah.
And then where we are talking about this like Southern Valley is the Central Coast, like I said.
Yeah.
Not even, sorry, like Maule, which is the last region.
Yeah.
So Maule is interesting because it is, depending on who you talk to, it's like the southern end of that Northern Valley, or the northern end of the Southern Valley. So Southern Valley being this Itata, Biobío, and all of that. This really historical, ungraphical wine place. There's a ton of these vineyards also planted in Maule, but there's also a ton of that kind of like it's much warmer than the rest. You can like noticeably feel it. I remember traveling there and I was like, holy shit, like it's so much hotter here. So a lot of the kind of the old, those projects that I was talking about, the northern companies coming down south and doing their like little projects with these old vines, they're mostly all happening in Maule. So the Maule is this kind of like a central coast that connects kind of like the northern like Napa Valley and the rest. And then the Southern Valley that we're talking about, like the Itata Bio. This is like a Sierra Nevada foothills, essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Like this, like all the ways you're describing Roberto, like really reminded me of like Ashanti wines, and that like the way they were like finding these, which we Hallie and I just popped a couple of the bottles we got through like Case Club, and they're like so good and held up, and, like some of the like wild forage like mixed like, but yeah, and like it just seems like of like very like similar geography, climate, so like history.
Totally.
You know, you have like
cold air blowing through the ocean. You know, same thing Sonoma, right? Like this whole Russian River, like that carries all that cold breeze from the Pacific Ocean in. Like it's the same thing. Which also made me think of this another thing that I thought about. Like, so that I'm curious about is like not only these old vines that exist in Americas, right? Like, yes, Chile, this part has the oldest, it's ungrafted, 2050. Where else in the world do they exist? And I asked the winemakers about that. They're like, oh yeah, this is not the only place. There's some other places. This is the largest planting in the world, but you can find some in Argentina, you can find some in Bolivia, Peru, Mexico, definitely. And then you can find some in California even. So now I'm really curious about like, where are these vines in California? Where are these vines in Peru?
Right. I mean, like the mission grip, like what like is it 15, 16? Like right, the like the string of Spanish missions up the California coast of like fascinating. Cool.
Yeah, I wanna find other people in Americas that are making wines from these ancient mission vines, and then like I'd love to go there and like see them and taste them and all of that.
So are they tracking? I mean, is that trackable, or I mean, is it pretty kind of not really managed, or kind of do vines end up places and how does that kind of work or not work? Or
there's got to be a record because there's a record of them in Chile, right? So in this region, where the
you have to
was the 7th registered vineyard in this region.
Yeah.
Obviously, the missionaries planting began even before it was registered.
Right.
But if the missionaries went there, I'm willing to bet there's a record of it somewhere because they kept records of what they made and all the things. So it may, even though they may not be producing wines from that at this point, they may not be even productive at this point. It may be abandoned and forgotten. But you maybe have to find it. There's a record of it somewhere.
Yeah.
Where is that? Who has it? I don't know. So
it's fascinating.
Like, who, where else in Bolivia are there vines that are planted by the missionaries that have survived? Obviously not. I don't know of any vines that survived 500 years, but at least we know that 200, 250. But also the ones that I saw in Maule that are 250 years old, they were still so productive, producing so much fruit. And I was like, how is this 250 years old and producing this much fruit? And even the owner, Jose Luis, was like, I don't know. It's just the region. Like they just produce so much fruit.
They're happy there.
Crazy. He's like, I do nothing in the vineyards. I don't spray anything. He's literally 0. Like there's nothing in the field. It's like, I don't even do copper and sulfur in the field. I do nothing.
Clearly it's kind of, you said before, geographically, there's something that in that region that has, because it didn't get, maligned by the whatever the plague was. How do you pronounce it? Phylloxera. Okay.
Yeah.
That there's some,
So, but then I'm also curious. Is it only a matter of time the phylloxera comes down here and fucks everything up?
So what exactly is it? Do you mind me? I could just look it up on Claude or
No. So
I'd rather hear you talk about it because I know you're an expert on it.
So phylloxera is a root louse disease.
Root louse disease.
So it's a bug that eats at the roots of the grapevines and then infect the plants and they die. And the American vines, the Vitis labrusca, so the European vines, all the European vines, the grapevines that we know is a Vitis vinifera kind of vines. And before they were introduced into Americas by the Europeans, the Spanish missionaries and the French people and different Europeans that landed on America, the Vitis labrusca and different American grapevines that grew here, their rootstock was resistant to this rootstock.
Resistant.
They didn't
Okay.
have, they didn't have any problem with it. So when these Europeans came here, took some of the cuttings and the plant matter from America and brought it back to Europe, they brought this root louse with them to Europe. And Vitis vinifera is very susceptible to this root louse because they never had it.
Yeah.
Spread across Europe and basically decimated like 95% of European vineyards. And that was in 1880, 1890, somewhere around there, in the 1800s. So the oldest vine that you find in Europe, yes, there are pockets of Europe where the phylloxera never got to. It is very much an exception. Most of European vineyards and the oldest vines that you find in Europe are at most 120 years old because
So are they what they had to replant did that come from the United States back to Europe?
So the solution to that was
to regraft,
they took the rootstock of an American grapevine and then graft the Vitis vinifera European vine on top of it. And that is essentially what you find everywhere in the world now.
Okay.
Even in America, that's what you find now.
Yeah.
Those Vitis vinifera, they're grafted onto American rootstock. Except for
because they totally forgot about what they took to Chile or wherever else.
Except for these little pockets around the world, and particularly here, this part of Chile, not even all of Chile, this part of Chile, where the missionaries first landed, are the largest planting of these ancient vines in the world.
Crazy.
And even the Chileans don't know that it's there, and Chileans don't care that it's there. They're like, but the best ones come from the north. And it's just like, I even asked them, I'm like, does this anger you? Like, doesn't this make you so angry as a winemaker from the South when you hear your own Chilean people talking about how the best ones come from the North and the South doesn't make anything good? And then when you're sitting on this treasure trove of gem, I mean, it's like I said, it's like the lost kingdom.
Eventually they'll find it.
Eventually they'll. But
it's good that they don't now. It's good that they don't now because the wine's only $40. Well, then it would be $18.
Yeah, maybe $40. But this is what I will say though. It is slowly changing. He did say that. They did say it is slowly changing, but still a long way to go. And but one thing is that I don't know what it is about. There's like a certain swagger about these winemakers. At least the three that I met, the Chilean winemakers. It's like they know how fucking good their wines are and they're confident about it. Like they don't care if like other people recognize how good it is because they know it's good. As opposed to it's almost like they're so secure about their wine. And it's like it's interesting coming from
you know what happens, like really, really intelligent, educated, sommeliers or wine enthusiasts or whatever, kind of winemakers know where to go, right? Versus going to the north.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it makes sense because, like, the real wine people aren't, who's going to pay? I mean, like, I don't know. I don't drink cheap Chilean wine.
Yeah. No. And
I mean, I couldn't even tell you what the brand is anymore. I just don't, it's like not in my world anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it.
Don't get me wrong. There's definitely a place in the market for those wines. And I don't think, honestly, like having, especially in the times of these wines getting so expensive, like having a affordable entry point wine, I don't think it's
yes. I agree with you. Yeah.
But it's just what they're doing is not like wine. It is like making Coca-Cola. Like don't think of it
Right.
as like a real product. It's not a product with a
Hmm.
of soul and authenticity. It's just like a commodity product. Um, but yeah, it's also interesting because I was talking to them about how like it's kind of funny coming from as a sommelier in America because like I feel like America is still so like insecure. Like we're still like planting these things, trying different things, and let me see what
Hmm.
works. Like I'm not sure like oh, this is still
Hmm.
the right thing to do. As opposed to like you come down here and then like you're still going up against like you're not successful in terms of like everybody looks at you like, oh my God, such good wine's coming here. Even your own people shit on it. But they're just like, it's cool. They'll get there. Like I don't
Yeah.
care if
Yeah.
I get the recognition because I know how good our wines are.
Right? No,
It's
yeah,
just like
yeah. The
it's
pressure.
yeah, it's amazing.
Well,
There's
they're
like
working in
certain
like in a bubble, right? Where they can
yeah,
kind of take the chances or risks you were mentioning that he's starting to have to manage and but not have the pressure of like, kind of the microscope scrutinizing, every little thing that
yeah,
they do and how
absolutely.
they do it. They get to do it and they can make mistakes and then figure out like from the mistake, like how to, do it the way that it will produce like the wine that they want. Anyways, it
Yeah,
sounds
and
it sounds idyllic actually in the like
totally.
crazy ass world that I mean,
Right.
you've been gone, however long you were gone, like you were gone through like a very tumultuous time. Like it feels like the last year has been tumultuous, but I bet to spend all that time in a country where like you could just focus on something of beauty and just, you were biking and like it sounds like heavenly.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I mean, cycling alone was incredible, but like to add
Yeah.
this part on top of it, it was a really amazing. It was a meaningful trip. Not
Yeah.
only fun,
Yeah.
but like very meaningful. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So when you did the bike trip, do you do it as a group? Is it supported, or do you do it because you know what the route is and you do it and then but you're somehow part of it, like some organized thing?
no,
Like,
no, yeah, it's all supported. It's all
okay,
organized. So,
okay.
yeah, you raise money and then they give you full support. There are two guides, so one in the front, one in the back. So
Yeah, okay.
you're with support at all times. And
Yeah.
we had two support vehicles, so
Okay.
loaded with
Yeah.
gear and
Yeah.
bike parts and
Like if
snacks.
if like your tire goes flat or,
Yeah,
whatever.
you don't have to worry about any of that shit. It's a cush cycling.
No,
I'm not
no, no,
doing
no.
anything.
That I mean, but like I'm sure there was a lot like what were the elevations that you had to
Yeah. I mean, the riding itself was not easy, but so I think total we did like 260 miles and
wow.
like 10,000 feet of climbing.
Hmm. Over
Uh,
how many days did you do that? Like
5 days.
five,
Yeah,
4, yeah, 5.
5 days.
Yeah.
Um, so this is my fourth one, and on
Hmm.
paper, this is the easiest one that I've done, but it's also the one that I struggle the most
Yeah.
because I train the beast.
Yeah. I know, I believe me. I used to do, but not anything like this, but 100-mile rides, but much in flatter terrain.
Yeah,
And the beginning rides, I would train and train and train. I was with a group and it was amazing. And by the last one I did, like I didn't train and it sucked.
yeah, exactly.
Like totally sucked. And I was just like, I can never do this again because it just my schedule got too crazy and I
Yeah,
couldn't do it anyways. So,
yeah, exactly. I'm
but
like, I gotta train. Like, I 100% overestimated my base level of fitness. I
yeah,
mean, it
yeah,
got me through. I rode
yeah,
every
yeah,
day,
yeah, 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 no,
but
clearly. But
yeah, it was yeah, I got my ass kicked. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
On the easiest one out of
yeah.
the four.
Well, it's great to see you, and I'm glad I'm jumping back in. Sorry, I've been so schizophrenic about participating, but this was definitely about. I was reading along in your emails, and this was definitely something I wanted to kind of just listen to you because it's clearly you're so passionate about it. It's like this is the one time where I'm like, okay, this is a region that I would like to go and visit. I mean, not that
Yeah,
I don't want to go to Europe and visit but everyone does that, right? I
Right.
mean, everyone goes to France or everyone goes to Italy,
Right.
and like this is like so kind of it's obscure, but clearly they're very advanced in what they're doing. And they're
It's amazing.
creating like amazing wine.
Yeah, amazing wine, and like the people are just so friendly,
Yeah.
and it's just fucking gorgeous out there. It's
Yeah.
stunningly beautiful out there.
Yeah. No,
Oh.
that sounds amazing. And I haven't had anywhere I've like really wanted to go. So I'm gonna need to explore this. So through the month of February, well, I'll be learning more.
Excellent.
But I started my own company. I don't know if I told you that the last time I was on.
Yeah, let me turn off the recording. So you know.